Hi, I'm Christopher Runsman. Welcome to One Page Story Extravaganza. If you have a story idea you'd like to suggest, please put it in the chat or the comments. You can feel free to put it on the comments section in any of my social media or any of my posts at all. I do a one-page story from these ideas or ideas that are flowing through my own noggin every single day, and I post them online. If you want to see the original art, it's on my Patreon. The link's down below for that and all of the other social media outlets. Joining the community, have fun, subscribe to things, put the notifications on, all that jazz. But take part, have fun, watch for your suggestion to be made into a story, inspire others maybe with your idea, or, I don't know, be inspired to make some of your own. Either way, it's a lot of fun. Hope to see you soon.
Hey, how are you? Okay, so we're just getting set here. There we go. Hi, how are you? This is today's page again for those that weren't with us earlier. I've got page 179 or 279, 279. So yeah, we're clocking along. I think we'll hit the. I'm aiming for 356 at the end of the year, so I think we might do it. But I'm having a lot of fun in anyways. So yeah, for those of you that weren't here earlier, I started a page, the suggestion for today, and I'll write this down for the comments. It's from Joshua K, and it is the Sinister Minister. Just a sec, Corbin. From Westminster. Okay, so I put that up in the chat, and there we go. That's the Sinister Minister from Westminster. That's our subject matter today. Exciting stuff, I know. But here we go. So here's the overhead. This is the principal part of the composition that I came up with. This is the Coles Notes update on where we started and where we left off earlier today. 1, I wear glasses full time now. 2, this is the picture that we were drawing. 3, Corbin's right beside me. That's pretty much all you need to know. Okay, so this is the start of things. Now, we had talked and about the overall composition of Sinister Minister from Westminster. And thank you, Joshua K., for the suggestion. We had talked about the overall composition being, here he is with his hands out going, come and get me. We talked about the fact that I'm going to use George C. Scott as the model for my minister. And then the other piece of that larger composition is him standing there looking all nice and dainty in front of the sepulcher at the front of the church with a little stained glass panel board action and raised stage area like at the front of a church and behind him. But this part of the composition, what are you going to do with that, Chris? So this is the larger part that we came up with for it. And just a second, I got to turn down the super trim. Take it easy, Roger Taylor. Okay, so this is the larger part of the composition that we came up with. And this is where our priest character is taking on what looks like an angelic host, but it's actually bad angels. So the idea here is that we're flipping things on a turn. While initially the composition looks like the priest is a sinister bad boy. The truth of it is that he's trying to defend us from this terrible, scary bunch of maniacs. So, yeah. So we were talking about what we're going to do for our background, and that's where I go back to this roughs, this page of roughs again. Now, the angle that I've shown here is the angle of the background that I want. I want to tilt the axis of the drawing. And if it has a tilted axis, let me straighten the camera. If it has a tilted axis, the whole idea here is that it sort of just continues this sweep of movement, everything towards our principal guy. But what's behind him? Now, the suggestion is Sinister Minister from Westminster. Minster, not minister, Minster, okay? Well, Westminster is a part of Great Britain. So, oh, Chris found a book. Hey, everybody. Mr. Jim Luhan has joined us. How you doing, Jim? I'm back. So, Westminster being a place in England, I thought I'd pull up this book with crazy history of England. It's got some cool gravestones, stuff like that, you know. But it's also got some cool compositions of buildings and things like that for us to look through. Now, it breaks down Whiteley Village. It doesn't say Westminster as a part of England in and of itself. There we go. There it is there. There's Westminster, the St. James School, Soho, right? Westminster's foreign graves. But it doesn't really give us any buildings per se, other than this one and the front of your standard British pub. So that's not going to help us specifically trying to figure out some sort of background composition. But what we can do is try to find something like that in here from some other part of England, because believe it or not, a lot of these places look alike. So we're just peeking through. It's kind of fun. That's kind of fun. Holding that page. So the idea with the background composition, ooh, what do we got there? What? So I think I found something, folks. I want to have it indicative of British town. Yeah, that's good, right? You like that? What do you think of that, folks? Oh, there we are. Yeah, see, thatched roof. That's where we're going. So I think I'm going to put together some of these elements, but there was some discussion about it being set in a church graveyard. There was some suggestion about it being set, you know, at the side of a larger building. I think I kind of like the idea of it taking place. See, I'm debating this to this. What do we like? What do you like? Yeah, so yeah, I think I'm going to go with this. So there's my big giant, you know, sorry, pal. I just made Corbin jump in the air. So there's my resource image. Now, we've got the composition here. Let me grab another piece of paper, and then let's start roughing out some ideas. Okay. You got me a big old stack of paper. I'm going to switch up my surface for a sec. This is a night table. And so what I've got here is El Gigantor. This is a 12-inch by 20-inch, I believe, night table. And got a plug for it here. So look at that. Shiny, 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 shiny piece of leather. Anyways. So now, if I take this compositional breakdowns that we did here before, and I think about how some of these things will fit on here, I'm going to use a darker colored pencil just to differentiate from the foreground line that we've already utilized. Sound good, Corbin? Corbin is really getting annoyed with me blocking, you know, making him move around. Okay, so let's start here. Now I know I'm going to put the drawing underneath here. And the reason I'm putting our drawing underneath is that now you should be able to see some of this peeking through, okay? Now the reason that I'm putting that, our foreground drawing, underneath what's going to be our background drawing is it sort of helps me understand where I've got to put some of these compositional elements. And by being allowed to do that, I'm going to use this red. I think red will show up. Hey, I'm red, I'm showing up. Okay. So the reason that I'm going to do that is that based on our notes and based on some of these visual elements that we already talked about before, it sort of gives us a headspace about where we want to look at the finished image. So keeping this in mind, I'm going to use this as a real rough. And what I mean by a real rough, I'm going to show you something that you don't often see me doing here, okay? If I figure out that this is what I want to play with some environment, I've got the priest here, okay? And I know that I want, to him to have a mausoleum behind him, right? And for him to perhaps be falling back the steps, like falling back up the steps of the mausoleum as he's taken on these guys. And then we can have some gravestone elements in the foreground, but I want to get into the British town illustration stuff right here. And then the church just peeking up over the top. So let's see. All right, so if I'm thinking about this mausoleum idea, this is my directional axis right here, okay? So because I've got this line moving this way, there it is, sorry. I've got this handy dandy ruler, and this handy dandy ruler says if the lines are going this way, then that means these lines are going that way. Now, when I turn this correctly, okay, you can see now that everything's going to be at a pitch, and that's good. We like them pitches. And the reason that things are going to be at a pitch is because I want to have it askew. I want to have things be off for the viewer, okay? So because this is my rough, and because I'm not being precious at all about how I do this, I know for a fact that I want to put using, hold on, I'll get it again, using our little image right here, okay, we're going to base our mausoleum on that. Okay, so I want to put that, here's the ruler, angled roof, okay. And then we're going to clean this up. Remember, this is our rough, so we're being really deliberately chunky with it. I've got it on an angle, so it's a more comfortable place, like a more comfortable direction for me to put these lines down. Okay, so I know I've got the brick running throughout, okay? We know that for a fact. Oh, see, I'm off angle here already. It's a tricky thing. All right, and then we know that this is going to have this vibe, this energy here, no pattern of the brick. But in addition to that, I want to put in this doorway. Hey, YouTube, cut it out. Right, so if I'm going to have this door here, and so that sorry. There, that'll be the angle of the bricks. So if I've got this set up in such a way, there we go. Much better. I turn my thing off. So now I've got a better structure for my mausoleum door, right? And so this sits behind him, behind our priest. Okay? So we know we've got him falling in the foreground. So one of the things that we want to consider doing is putting these steps walking up to the entrance of the mausoleum. So I'm still moving along parallel with this guy by estimation. It's sloppy, it's chunky, it doesn't matter. I mean, you can't even really see the steps because they're all falling behind his body the way that I'm doing this. So it's all right, we get the idea. Here's our first step that we can see. Now, it's not just going to be a step like so. Let's put some little decorative elements here, as you would find in this location. So, and again, we're roughing this up, even though a lot of this isn't going to be seen. We're still filling it in our background drawing. And the reason that we're filling it all in our background drawing is that we know it better informs us compositionally of where things are located, and it gives us the juice to switch some stuff around. Hey, what happened? Right? To move things along. So there's a big urn. Here he is falling back. Now we know that we've got our mausoleum foreground. Let's do taking yet another color. And the reason I keep switching colors is, it's a benefit to separate one surface from another. And so I'm putting in these iron bars to keep the dead in. I mean, to keep people out. Okay, so there's our one open gate. Make sure you remember that gates have to lock. So, and then the second part of this is that if we push this line further here, and then run parallel line with these guys, there is our shadow. Dun, 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 dun. Now, we could even be more interesting by considering putting something in there. Somebody had suggested in the earlier stream that we think about having a kid hiding behind the priest. That's an idea. But I think that maybe I like the idea instead of putting a body in there. And the reason for that is that it's almost like he's trying to protect the immortal soul of the person who's inside this place from these guys trying to come and get him. So, gives it an interesting aspect to the narrative. So we know this is all shadow. This is in foreground. So it's going to not be in the shadow specifically, but it's going to cast some heavy lights. We'll get into those. So now we've got some more elements in our composition. And if we want to check against where it's going, set it on top of another piece of paper so you can see it clearly without the light flooding it out. Right? So this is feeling good. I'm liking this. We're getting some good sense to it. Our lines aren't perfect, but they're going to be eventually. So now we've got our priest falling back in front of this. If I move this over, and I hope you can see this clearly here, because of where his hand is with the cross in hand, by moving this over, I don't have what's called a tangent line. And a tangent line is when two objects run over the same line, and so that one tends to blend right into the other. So by moving this image over just the tiniest a bit, so that the cross that's in the foreground here on his hand is now not just running right up inside this framed, or this iron bars. So we're just going to bump our composition over, which tells us now that everything that we're drawing, we need to think about. So because we drew this whole thing in here to start with, we're good now, because we already accounted for this piece of the urn, the concrete urn, to be where it would be located in space. We've already pre-planned that. So that's why it benefits you to just draw every element and draw it in full. Okay, so we're good here. We move that over. I went and made a matching one to line them up. But now we've got this stuff happening here for our mausoleum. Now there's a couple things you can do. You can be really cheeky and you can draw the other elements on here, or you can put yet another piece of paper over top and figure out where you want the gravestones that way and draw them on this sheet so you can move those around. This is the old school way of doing things. Now we do all this crap in digital, and you can just put things wherever you want, whenever you want. Just move them around willy-nilly. We know we've got our one angel in the foreground here, so we know that that's covering up X amount of space, right? But over here, we still want to figure out little key elements to populate the environment. Now, it's important that you think back to the last time that you went to a cemetery. And remember that on plots, there are post corners. And what post corners are is that they denote that everything within this space belongs to this family. That family has bought the entire plot area. So they would have these bars running across there, and as in to say, this is our space, don't come in. And so you'd have to step over those to get into this area. Now, I don't know that they'd have them in the front, so I'm not going to put a bar across the front seam because that's kind of counterintuitive. But what we will do, okay, is take a concrete piece and we'll run it across the ground here. Okay, and we're still running parallel with this guy. So now I'll finish these lines and they'll properly together when we start to tie the whole image together. But now we've got our mausoleum in the foreground. And this is just a random bit of concrete on the ground. So, you know, it doesn't have to have a smooth, clean line at the bottom. We can have the grass, the ground recede and rise up in the foreground. What I mean by recede is that little dips so some of the concrete is showing. You know, nothing's perfect over time. So, and then we could put, you know, and then everything's like here's a crack in it. Little features, little additives we put on as we go. So, but in foreground, before this, in front of, I'm just going to keep them together, in front of the mausoleum. So now that we've defined its clear space, let's look at some of these gravestones we scribbly diddled. Now, if I'm thinking about different gravestones to start with. It's the first grave I'm going to stop on. There we go. Okay, so here's a grave that sits in the foreground. So these lines that I'm defining over here is to give some dimension to the gravestone. Okay? Okay. So here's our gravestone. It sits in the foreground of the mausoleum. The mausoleum steps moving up. Whoops, what happened? Oh, I'm sorry, I washed it out. So here's our gravestone that sits in the foreground of our mausoleum. And then just for added measure, we'll put one more, right? We'll put, now I'm going to put the foreground drawing here. And we'll add this one in here. Now, it's going to be covered up by angel wings, but that's okay. And the reason I say that that's okay is because that's good. It shows more complexity, and it gives us more better sense of depth. If there's wings kicking across this thing, heck, even if you have one sitting on, over the top of it, like as in it's resting on it. Great. That's good stuff. That's good soup. So we can have something like this. Now, I want to make it more interesting and to give you a sense of where this is located in space in relationship to everything around it. So I'm raising this above this line, this horizon line, this foreground, middle ground division that I've already established. So this skinny old gravestone is now popping up across that. Right? Does that make sense? Boy, crystals, whatever. Oh, I tell you. And just to keep it a little more interesting, we're going to do the next one smaller and leaning a different way. Well, Chris, why are you doing that? I'm glad you asked. So we've got it bumped back just a tiny bit. So you get, hopefully you understand that this, because of this axis here, this line is going across here. This is farther back than that. And then if we were to draw, so here's something I want to consider. Okay. I want to put a fence someplace in here in order to chop the space. And I think that where I want to place it works about here. It's far enough oops. So I'm giving it this sort of bend, all right? The reason that I'm giving this sort of bend to it is that it's not a new fence. No, it's a rickety old fence that runs across the property. And what used to be a nice clear definition of space is now, seeing better days. Right, so we're thinking about, once again, lining up with our rough arrangement of where the pages are going to be in relationship to each other. So I know I've got some of these boards from this fence. They're going to be following up what looks like, it would look like it's going up the butt of the angel if it was just one of them, but because it's a few of them spaced across like this, okay, now we're pushing it back. Now it's this fence. And we're going to make it a little more interesting. Oops, that's still behind the leg. So we want to keep this line moving like this. We don't want to divide the eye too much. Okay. One more, and then let's mess it up. Put an angled one in. leave a gap. A missing one, like we got a missing one over here. See this line that's come through? This is telling us it's getting smaller and shorter and farther back. And the space between our boards should get shorter. Anyhow, so there's our fence going through, right? And ideally this divides, the two spaces here. And if I put right here a little arch, we'll clean this up in a couple seconds. Hold up. So I'm going to twist this around a little bit. Change that angle slightly. Okay, so here's our arch. Moving across the space now. So ideally, this archway divides our foreground and all the fantastic fun stuff that's happening here. This is now establishing, here's our midground right there from our, you guessed it, our background. Anyways. But it also lets us change the course of direction for the fence. And we could even start to have some fun with it. And to have the fence lean forward just a little more with each board. So we get to one that's popping separate of everybody else. Now, I haven't drawn the crossboards yet, the structure. But this fence is broken, so looks like an ice cream cone what I've drawn here. And as we're inking, as we're going through that next stage of the development of this, we'll think about things like, your brain starts to realize that, having long grass in front of this roots it in place and changing the direction of it, having your directional lines change as you're inking so that it starts to change what's where for and why. But this place also now allows us to have the way that we've got things set up now. It allows us to put some more gravestones in because we know where things are going to be. Push them back just a little more each time. Rounding the ground around in front of the grave just because it's not going to be even. It's not going to be pretty. All of this is secondary, really, compared to all the interest that's in the foreground. But by populating this background and giving a setting for where everything's going to happen in front of it, It just gives the eye places to move around and things to see. Now, let's lay one of the gravestones on its side, because that's what happens in old graveyards. So there we go. And another one on that side too. So I'm going to grab one away. Okay, so there's some of the stuff that's happening in our background here. And just to keep it set where things are in relationship to one another, I'm going to put another couple of graves in our foreground. Like so. So, now let me pull up the thicker paper. I'll hold this up like so. So now you can see that graveyard image that we're putting together. And let's get this between here and here. In order to give a sense of distance, we're putting in another gravestone. And just to make this one make some sense, we put another one right here. So now you know that this is sitting on this plane. And I'm going to lay one more on its face. It's sad, but it happens. Oh, hiya, Riri. Welcome aboard. How you doing? I know I'm doing an extra one today. My wife is out for dinner with her friends, so hey. Grab a bite. Now let's do some stuff. So here's our mausoleum. Here's everything going on. Let's move these other papers and start to see how this fits together now. And we'll do it by switching this and this around. So now you can see, oops, let me move this up. I'm so sorry. So now you can see, oh my goodness, we got a few people popping in. Hiya, Paul. How are you? Mary was all about your scenes today. Oh, that's super cool. I'm glad that she likes them. Where was that? Did I miss that? Was that online someplace? If so, let me know and I'll go look it up. So, makes me think of a couple things. I could put a little thing to keep the birds off on top of the mausoleum. So, Paul says that he's in the car at his daughter's dance class. I'm drawing in the car. Nice. That's the benefit of working with these digital platforms, is that you can do that. Okay, so looking at this breakdown of the more involved background scene, we can now place it underneath our foreground drawing and see how it sort of makes the initial drawing that we've got far more complex and far more involved. And that's exciting. Personally, I think it's really exciting. So what it tells us now, though, is that if we look at this line here, moving across, we want something there. We want to tie that together. And why not add in one more plane of the gravestones? So it would move across this area here. And just as simple as this. She had a live show early this morning. Oh, that's awesome. Riri, can you send me the link where you usually send me the fun video things that you find? Because I'd love to see that and give her a thumbs up. I appreciate that. She liked this. So here we are. We've got this one here. Now, I'm going to draw it in like I've told you about drawing in the whole mausoleum. And the reason that I'm drawing these in is that it gives us the opportunity to move the drawing around back and forth and find the best location for it in relation to everything behind, right? What? Okay, what? Yeah. Now I've got a slight line, a little mark over here in the corner for where the cross is that I'm using as my tentative place for where it's going to go. So we'll put one more gravestone right here. Twin for this one. Twinning is good when you're doing stuff that's half hidden behind other things because it allows the person to fill in the rest of this gravestone because they know about the rest of this one, right? So if this stuff is missing, that's okay because you can fill in the differences. And then we'll have broken gravestone. And this is going to make sense to the viewer because look, more broken gravestones. And then just one more right beside that. Let's have it leaning off like so. But the viewer's eye, even if the wing is overlapping, the viewer's eye will fill in the rest of the gravestone because we know from this one I'm just move a little bit. Right? And then we'll put some more pieces of board across. There we go. So we know that this is all kinds of angel business in the foreground. Bad angels. Riri says, will do. Yeah, I'm glad you like this. I think it's going to take me a little bit longer to get mine because up in the north, up in the true north, home and free. Okay, so here's our foreground laid out. All right. Now, there's still a bunch of elements that I got to finish in that I have not finished on the big rough drawing that I've got here. All the paper's behind us, you can see it. So with this rough drawing, I haven't finished in a number of the smaller details on purpose because we're going to get there. But what we've got now is enough to have the larger block shapes for what's going on in the foreground. But I still got to finish a bird here. Kind of finish a bird person here. But what we know now is between this and this, okay, we've still got all kinds of space here for the village and the village to sit through. But what this tells me is by placing this here, okay, this tells me if this wing is here and it's going to cut across here, then, and the mausoleum corner is here, I don't want it to run right into the mausoleum corner. But it tells me that right about here is the top, is where the silhouettes of the building that are in behind need to sort of top out. Now, as discussed earlier, I can have all kinds of branches and things from a tree that are filling in this space here and blackening out a good part of the background. But it has to, at the very least, sit behind these guys. Okay? So that tree can carry over here. But if it has a base system anywhere, I would argue it's probably back in here someplace. But you're really going to see very little of it. But by knowing that, by knowing where it is, lets us figure out the rest of that movement from it for the rest of the composition. And you see I've got marks for mid-ground on the wrong page now. We're figuring it out. So, but I'm pretty comfortable that this is where it's going to be placed at least. So there we go. So we've got things coming together now, but what we need to consider at this point. Here, let me take these down so I stop swinging them around. We have the technology for that. It's called tape. Okay. Well, I'm missing stuff being said. I'm sorry. Oh, maybe it says done. So let's get this set. There we go. Drop my pencil. I hate that. I hate it so much. I hate it so much. Flames. Flames in my face. There you go. He got away. Okay. So here's another piece of tip in order to hold down the picture on the light box. Okay. So here's our third piece of paper. A third piece of paper, Cressa, you're crazy. Yes. So we know we've got our foreground or midground roughly figured out, right? What we want to figure out now is our silhouette little British village. And that will fill out our whole scene. Now, so the last question we want to ask ourselves is this. Oh, ruler. Ooh, there he is. We found him. Okay, so here's our guy. All right? Here's our guy right here. And here's our angels all moving towards him as a mass, right? But the mass really moves like this. Okay, so there's the larger part of the mass. And it's sort of moving in on a triangular towards our guy. Big old arrow. Now, that tells us that I'm going to make some marks on here. Don't be afraid. So that means that our lines are moving like so. And of course like this. And I'll turn the thing off in a second and show you. And then our background lines are moving on this angle. Okay. All right. Now, there's the relative movement that's going on our page. And sometimes we don't think about these things, but sometimes we need to. So if this line's going this way, the arrow is all pointing to this guy, our principal. Oh, I just had an idea. Oh, my phone dinged. Oh, I just got a Riri. Okay. So there's the sort of directional lines in our composition right there. Bing, bong, bing, bong. And then running that way. So we want to see, I missed one. The roof. Okay. So we want to have our town, our village, run across here. I use our third color. A third color. So this is where we want our village to move. It's right through there. So however it fits in behind is inconsequential. And as we move across here into the mass of angels, whatever space is between are just going to shadow out. They're going to shadow out because we establish that there's a big old tree. It's going to have a lot of big old branches. So that's going to take care of that part of the composition for us. But we need our little English village here. Now, I showed at the start this book about the secret Britain. The secret Britain. So here's the type of fence. Right here. Here's our post fence. Like a farm fence that we sort of incorporated something similar to that. A little more of a white picket, but you know. But this type of house, oops, I'm sorry, camera's not, there we go. This type of house works for us. Let's see what else we can find. Because we don't want it just to be church. We got the idea that church is in the foreground. The gypsies. Boy. My grandmother was apparently a gypsy. Okay, so we got one. So there's a house. That's a fine example of like a manor house there, that's a fine example of the type of space, that the type of pieces that we want in the background here. So if we, on this scrap piece of paper that we've been scribbly doubling on, okay, if we think about the space that we have here, that we can see, you can see roughly the shape of the angel wing, right? So there's where our space is. So we really don't have a lot of space that we need to cover. So what we can do is, because we're silhouetting these out and we found this basic form, we're just going to put that shape in, right? And the idea of some of this, it's the little shapes that are on top that is what makes it more compelling. So we'll put some of these suckers in. Some of these old chimneys. And then, just to give a little more life to the background, turn some lights on in the windows. But why, Chris? There's people's in there having toast. Okay, so this is now pulling together, and we're going to continue this, and we'll put another one over here. Now, this line, and the reason that I'm filling it in is so we can play with the lighting as we get through. Now, I know his hair is going to have more volume, so this part will probably be covered, but just because, just in cases. So there's that shape now. Okay. I'll set that roof line follows over there. And then we'll put a window on the side here with the light turned on. These people got no idea what's going on next door. They think the neighbors are just really quiet. So that's right, that's a great retro. So we'll put in some lines, some shape, right? And we want to fit just a couple of little more interesting movements right there. Now, if the wings go over this, good stuff. Doesn't matter. But if it doesn't, we got something. So the idea is that there's just some shapes, but these shapes all continue what's happening here, and that's the directional focus being pulled to this dude right there. Okay? And by having our little village in the back, and one more tree, in their background here. Now I'm drawing it in even though the wing's probably going to go over it. It doesn't matter. I'm still drawing it in. So there's our village in the background that even though it's covered, we still know it's there. And we still know it's got to go on. So the other thing that we can do, just for interest's sake, to continue this is to draw a road line. And I will move it like so, so that the idea is that this road moves this way. Whether anyone sees it or not doesn't matter. We know it's there. And that informs us of things. I'm going to change the slide slightly. So there's our background village, right? Yeah, it's okay, Chris. So let's move those parts in. There we go. Come see, it's not probably using that anyway. So here's our whole composition laid out now. Now, is it fine-tuned? No. Is it got a lot of work to do? Yes. But is it put together for us to now take to the next point? You betcha. So going back to our original drawing. So for the original drawing, we had the idea of having this image in the foreground. Okay, a paneled image where his hands are sticking out here. And then this very complex image to fill up the centerpiece of the page. And then here's the exterior of our image. So soften that round, tighten that up. So there's how we're breaking down. So we've now got fully roughed out this space, right? And then this image here comes in here, this image in here, cuts in the corner. So what it tells me is that when I'm doing my finished version here, I'm going to have to punch out a little bit more into this sort of space. And that's fine. That's completely fine. We got the gist of it. We got the main part of it here. And, that's not half bad. Because the other beautiful part of all this is that we can expand, contract, and pull it up higher, pull it wider across. But there's so much more that we can do with the overall of the drawing. It makes it fit to what we need it for. So if I put the church window with the priest in it, if I can even change this composition part so that it's really just, hold on, let me go with another color for you, that it only takes up this part of it, right? Just to keep it tighter and cleaner, and put his hands inside this composition and keep this tighter and cleaner, right? And so, well, you can't see any of that, can you? Sorry, I'm so sorry. What a bonkers goofball I am. So if we tighten this up to be like so, we tighten this up to be smaller as well, because the majority of the composition is going to be filled by that. Is that better now that the lighting isn't so muffled? So from our initial idea that we had for our suggestion of sinister minister from Westminster, right? The idea is it's all reliant on our text now. So our text has to come across with a couple of points. And so textually, by today's standards, do you call him a badass? By today's standards, you call him a bad boy. I like the idea of keeping it open for the kids. So you call him a bad boy, a tough guy. Whoops. The lads would say he's downright sinister, isn't it? Right? So we're playing on that now. Why have I said the lads? Well, lads is what you call really bad boys in Britain. So gives the demons and fallen angels what for. And so all it takes is some simplistic text like so. And by moving this text throughout our composition now, with this simple amount of text, it allows us to really narrate. Here's the presentation of our bad boy, first panel. Here's the whole scrappy-do scene. And then in our final panel, and this is where we can do what I like to now call the punch. And what that is basically have the priest address all these, things that are being said about him. Because in my mind, having that portrait type frame of him looking right into the camera after being said, gives the demons and fallen angels what for? It gives him a good kicking, right? We can have him say the most, when you watch British television shows, my wife and I watch a lot of foreign television. She really needs the subtitles on because some different dialects in Britain are like, there's the Cockney drawl is almost unintelligible, for her. And I get it. There's parts of it that I might go, I think I got that word, right? But, gives the demons and fallen angels what for? And then we can have the priest say, I gives him a proper, it gives him a proper kicking. What am I like? Which doesn't make a lot of sense to a lot of North Americans. Who cares? It's like, so he says, I gives him a proper kicking. What am I like? He knows what it's like. But he's saying he's a butt kicker. By saying what am I like, it's a phrase that's used, and it's sort of saying, like two birds are talking, or two ladies are talking, and one says, "Oi, Mary, gallivanting around town. What do you like?" She's saying she's a floozy, like she's. It's a subtext statement. So I gives him a proper kick, and what am I like is just playing on that. Now I've got, a couple of friends that have very wonderful English and very beautiful diction, and they've got that wonderful, clean, crisp British that you hear on television and go, oh, they sound lovely. But my people aren't from that stock. My family goes back to that, oh, I got now, that sort of a thing. And there's a lot of teeth and not a lot of, shapes to the consonants. So a lot of heavy vowels. So, I tend to like looking at that dialect more than I do the clear, crisp diction. Now, contextually, if it fits for him to say, I give them a good thrashing, don't I? That's fun enough. But that's not the type of character that I want to illustrate here. All kinds of beepity doos in my ear. So that's what we're playing with here. Yvonne says, apparently we Brits talk too quickly. It's not that. And, my family's British, right? So with only being so far removed from British relatives, I clearly understand all these different dialects, but there's a lot of character that comes with, cultural vicinities. Like, you get that New York attitude. It conveys a certain kind of personality, right? You got that continental accent, like Cary Grant, right? Oh, Charlie, what are we doing today? That's not real. That's a made-up affectation for Americans to sound erudite, right? So Cary Grant really rocked it. Like he really did. And it makes him sound like, oh, Charlie. It makes him acceptable for the audience in America and the audience in Britain. So his films were successful on two shores. So dialect's fun to play with. So if you get the opportunity and you have any kind of comprehension whatsoever on different forms of pronunciation, feel free to play with those in your storytelling. Riri just loves British TV. Cary Grant was Brit, yes, but he still had a continental accent. So while he said things as he did, the continental is trying to put on American and British accents at the same time. It's a continental accent. So British people would put on the continental accent to sound more Canadian, or I'm sorry, more American, not Canadian per se, but more American, and what the perceived American upper society is. And American upper society would put on the Continental to sound more British, right? And you'll see it in instances like if a character is playing, Shirley MacLaine comes to mind, but I can't think of why. But if you see somebody trying to play like they're high society, they'll put on a Continental, and as an American actor or actress, they'll try to sound more grand. Oh, I know what it is. Downton Abbey. Listen to Shirley MacLaine in Downton Abbey. She plays the mother of the personality-less mom of the Downton Abbey clan. Charming. There you go. Absolutely. Played with this accent. Oh, yeah, for sure. Charming. There you are. That's how you say it. The BBC accent. Oh, yeah. That's so true. That's so very true. One of my favorite things about, if you ever get a chance, look up BBC Weather or Welsh Weather Report. Because you've still got the good evening and welcome to the weather report. You've still got that guy, but then he has the pronounced Welsh names, and it's fantastically fun. Maggie Smith. No, Maggie Smith is his mom. Dame Maggie is his mom. Shirley MacLaine is his wife's mom. She's only on the first season or so. But listen to the grand accent that she tries. Oh, you British. And then she switches back to the American with all your hoity-toity. Like, you have to check it out. It's so good. Did you know that Shirley MacLaine and Warren Beatty are brother and sister? Anyways. Silly facts. Yvonne says, I'm from Liverpool. We have the Liverpoolian accent. Well, there you go. Listen to John Lennon. Listen to John Lennon speak. There's a proper Liverpoolian accent. Riri knew that Warren Beatty and Shirley MacLaine were brother and sister. I'm always surprised a lot of people don't know that they are. Yeah. Dame Maggie Smith is such a fantastic chameleon of an actress. She puts on Downton Abbey like she's 100 years old, and then she goes and plays Professor McGonagall in the same year. Children to your dormitories, and she's fully physical. It's fantastic. Liverpudlian. Yeah, you got to be Liverpudlian to say that. You got a friend from the Isle of Man, and just very different diction. And then there's the, what is it called? The Cotswold accent. And then there's, anyways. J. Megan Smith, fantastic, always has been. Yeah, oh, very much so. I watched a really great old Michael Caine movie last night, and I can't remember the title of it now. But Michael Caine, huh? That guy's got his own accent. Anyways, so, okay, but the point is that when you're doing dialogue, play with the way that characters pronounce things. The page that I posted today, I spoke in dog. Let me see if I've got, there we are. Birthday snack. So in my mind, as you see, birthday snack, human boy at party, right? Party snacks were blue. So I'm playing on that very Appalachian, there's my dog Blue. Or he's gonna go on over there and get his bone. It's that whole, your top lip doesn't move and everything's pronounced about down here. I love it. It's one of my favorite North American accents. And if you watch, I mentioned this yesterday, but if you watch Best in Show and watch Christopher Guest put on that accent, he's a guy who's brought his hound dog to this dog competition show, and he gets in the wagon, or what does he call it, the camper trailer, and with his hound dog, and they're going to drive to New York City to be in this competition. So good. Anyways, but listen to him do with that accent. That's the accent that was going through my head as I wrote birthday snake. Birth, because your upper lip doesn't move. Birthday snake. Snake. See? It's fun. That's fun, he says, while making his face look like an absolute foolishness. So, okay. So that's the sort of jazz we got set up here. I'll switch on the light so you can see the whole composition as we've put it together. I'll flip that light up. Oh, look at it come together. So there is our little buildings in the background. And right here, popping through from behind the angels. Fallen angels behind the mausoleum. Here's our priest in the foreground, falling back into it. We've got our graves populating this whole center ground area into the shadowy part from around the angels, like they're spreading darkness. Yvonne says, Michael Caine was a Cockney. Oh, sure he was, but there's other Cockney actors that it's not that he's a Cockney. There's lots of Cockney actors that sound like he sounds Cockney. The difference is the way he paces it that makes it very Michael Caine, right? It's not, he's typical Cockney when he's in the Austin Powers movies where he's, I met her up the apples and pears, which means I met her upstairs. And, but it's the way that he normally pronounces things where listen here, Master Bruce. And it's that slow cadence that makes him such a unique voice. Christopher, still no paint. I done the school run and dinner prep. why ain't you got no color on there, fella? Yeah, well, we got the whole composition laid out. We're all set to go. I think I'll get this inked up for tonight. I'm going to do this quick here. I'll do the quick scribbly dibbles for the other two parts. Turn this off and find a pencil. Oh, pencil. I found one. So, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have him in the foreground here. And he's going to have that's cardigan, sweater. He'll have his, I can't remember what it's called, his little priest collar. And that's the Lola, Lola, Lola. Thumb, book, flat palm, fingers across. Here we go. He's resting his hands on the old good book. Shapes. Pocket. I like to shout parts of clothing out as I draw it. I just seem to be doing it for whatever reason. So here's our George C. Scott looking, well, it will be, standing here. So he is in front of the altar. And we'll put, if you know what this is, just made him a Catholic or an Anglican. I'm going to say he's an Anglican if it's British. So I guess tomorrow's paint day. Oh no, this will be done for tomorrow. And I'll do the digital tomorrow. We'll do the digital painting tonight. So here's our cross, and here's our sun disk, which is also cross, by the way. But there's his things on his. Now, not all this is going to be in the image, but we're drawing it because we are. And then in behind, we'll draw stained glass. Now, most of this isn't going to be even in panel, but that doesn't matter. We're drawing it because drawing's fun. Is that convincing? Does that make you run out and draw now? So here's our, now the fun part of this is that we could really, if we don't square off the panel, oh, I gotta center that properly and reverse that. So there's the shape of our image, and then plop him down just a little bit below. Free float him down below. There's our first one, and then our second one is going to be a closer shot of the priest saying, "Hey, come on!" This is my George C. Scott. Bring it, Russian! I'm going to draw him doing that as the priest. Now, all right, so there's the other two elements that will be going over here. I just got to sit down and ink it all now. And I got to be honest, I hate inking over the exact lines that I penciled out. I do. And it is entirely because I've already drawn them and I don't want to draw them again. So that's why I rough my pencils like this, because all those details will be put in with the inking process, because I get bored really easily with inking. So, okay, I'm going to sign out now. Hey, we got 2 times the streams today. But I'll be back tomorrow at 2 o'clock. I'll have this posted in the morning. And another Inktober is about to get posted now. If you're on my Patreon, I put the Inktober up first thing in the morning with the daily one page. And then I post the Inktober at night on everything else. So if you want to see the Patreon, if you want to sign up for Patreon, you can. It's just my name. It's in the links below. But that's where I put all the original art up, as well as little goodies and extras. And we're about to release. I'll give you a sneak peek. Okay? Don't tell anybody. It's a secret. I'm going to switch cameras. Wink. And wink. I'm going to be... Here's one. What? And then here is another. And I've got 4 of these bad boys. So these are examples of the mini books that are coming out soon on Patreon, where you can just get a digital copy of a little 12-page booklet. And you're welcome to print if you want. I don't care. So they it just collects a bunch of the one-page stories, and underneath of the each of the one-page stories, it says, here, I'll show you a page. There's one. Okay, so it shows you some of the, like what the suggestion is for each one, and then what the page is above it. And while it looks kind of random and sideways today, when you actually print it out and put the pages together, it opens like a little book. And fun in the sun, but we're collecting a lot of the one-page stories that aren't involved in this other book being published. And in that way, people can pick up copies digitally online, and it'll be a lot of fun. So look forward to that. But there'll also be not just one-page stories, but some of the alphabet book pages, which is static images and fun stuff. So, all right, that's about it for me for today. I'll get this done tonight and, post it for tomorrow. But thanks, everybody, for hanging out. Thanks for all you that came and hung out at this later time. I hope everybody's having a good day. I hope that those of our friends that are overseas where some of these conflicts are taking place right now, please be safe. And, just be safe in general, everybody. All right. That's about it for me. I'll be back tomorrow at 2 p.m. EST, 11 a.m. PST. I think that's 1 p.m. MST. I'm not sure. But meantime, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now. Okay.